Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to SATAL 2020. I'm Moltar, and we are here with Gold League. Gryphon Squadron taking on 343rd in a top-of-the-division battle for first place. Who's going to come out on top? 343rd, Gryphon Squadron, all Hornets against a mix-up of Hornets and Tomcats. Are the Tomcats going to come out with their teeth bared? Are the Phoenixes going to make their presence felt? like they have in the past matches? Let's check it out. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with the talking heads, the mustaches, the beards, Low Blow, and Billy Wall Merlin. How you guys doing this morning? Hopefully you guys had a great weekend. I know I did. My house sold in 6 hours, so, you know, it was a...
There you go.
Yeah, no, it was
Congrats on
nice.
that.
I was a little stressed out, but we made it work.
Especially in a market as weird as it is now with all the
It's
corona.
a hot market. It's a hot market.
Well, it's good. It's good. It's generating that what we need right now. So good to hear, man. That's good stuff.
It was really nice to be able to know that was all gonna not be a problem anymore. Now we have to go through inspections and a bunch of this other stuff, but you know, that's one less thing to worry about. So Low Blow, we were just talking about Pilot X versus the World. You said it was filling up. When is that stream taking place?
That's this Saturday, so at 2000 Zulu, and you know, Play School's going to have his work cut out for him. We are full up now. All 10 spots on the World team are filled. You got some strong pilots on there. You got TWB Dylan teaming up with UAF Clayman, and those guys are no joke. You know, Dylan coming third in Foals last year. Clayman is a serious MiG-29 pilot. You've got Slick and Guido, the two F-15 guys, have teamed up and are going to be putting some real-world ACM knowledge to use against Play School there. I'm teaming up with Tor Savior, so that should be... yeah, yeah, Savior? Yeah, man.
The worst to come up against, that's for fucking damn sure.
Yeah, but no, it's going to be a good time, man. We got some interesting rounds coming up, and then we'll be streaming that on this Sunday and providing some TAC view analysis of all that ACM goodness as well. So yeah, looking forward to it.
And things to remember is that is on Low Blow's channel. It's not on this channel. We haven't combined everything yet, so that is on Low Blow's channel. So if you want to watch that, make sure you follow Low Blow's channel here on Twitch, and Low Blow can post that in chat, and you guys can head over to make sure that you guys don't miss that. But today is 343rd against Gryphon Squadron. Billy, what are your expectations for how this match is going to go? These guys are top of the leaderboards. I think at the time this match took place, I want to say they were both undefeated. Worst case, I think Gryphon may have lost one match and 343rd was undefeated. What are your anticipations of what's going to come, especially the aircraft? Because 343rd is all Hornets, and Gryphon Squadron is 2 Hornets and 2 Tomcats.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up prior to kind of giving me the rundown on this, because it's been a minute since I've seen either of these two off the top of my head. And I think we've seen in previous weeks how much the Hornets groups using a lot of Hornets have kind of like played into that whole aspect of things. And what they're able to kind of do with all of those Hornets together, working kind of as one group. So I definitely think that's a factor in this whole thing. We should kind of give a point to 343 just based on that alone. But Gryphon Squadrons held their own quite well in every match we've seen from them this year. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting match to begin with. Definitely enough airframes here to make this a real mess real quick, but I think we've seen this play out several different ways with what we kind of have on the table here. So.
Right. Now, I do want to point out this is a closer airfield matchup. This is a Napa versus Maycop, so I think the separation's roughly 100 miles, maybe a little bit less. Low Blow, let's hear from you. What do you think's going to happen here? I mean, we saw the Phoenix really reach out and touch people in their no-no spots here in the past couple weeks, and it's been heavily effective. I don't know if that was due to its change with it. I think we're starting to get into the field of, and I don't know if it was this match was flown on this patch, but we're starting to get closer and closer, if we haven't already passed, where the Phoenix got that flight model or the APM changes where it didn't have an aneurysm and bleed all of its speed. So, what are your anticipations of what we're going to see today?
Man, I'd like to say that it's going to be a slugfest, and 343 at the top of their division at the moment, no joke. But, those 4 Tomcats on Gryphon Squadron there with that Phoenix, as you say, we saw in the last match there that 2 Tomcats, 2 Hornets, there you go. But those 2 Tomcats, we saw last week with those sub 30-mile Phoenix shots and particularly the 20-mile Phoenix shots, absolutely brutal. So, like you said, it's a short matchup, Maycop to a Napa, less than 100 miles. And if those guys can close the distance with those 2 Tomcats and lay down some Phoenix love, man, we could be looking at a short day here.
Phoenix love. Billy, there's another shirt right there. Sending it out with Phoenix love or something like that. Kissed by Phoenix. I don't know. Something like that. But, guys, let's jump into the match. Again, this is Gryphon Squadron taking on 343rd in a Gold League top-of-the-division bout. Who's going to come out on top? The long-range, big pokey sticks, or the guys flying all the same aircraft, the Hornets with the SA advantage. What do you guys think? Who's going to come out on top? Let's see how this one shapes up. So let's jump into the sim and see how we get going, all right? All right. So here we are. It'll load here in a second. These guys are just taxiing. We are looking at Gryphon Squadron. I think this is at a Napa. Phantom and Flower are in the 2 Tomcats behind. Sorry, it's not Flower. I think that's Jerk. Can't tell who that is. The blue blends in with the tarmac. Grinelli is working on some label mods for me to make these a little bit more visible, so that is coming. But it is Phantom and someone, I can't tell who that is. Let's zoom in, I guess, and see who that is. I think it's Jerk. So Phantom and Jerk in the Tomcats, and then Flower and Maximus rocking the F-18s, leading the way. And the F-18s are taking 2 tanks. This is a weapon restriction, so it's going to be 120Cs unrestricted on the Phoenix, except for the 120C, you can carry 6. The Phoenix, you can only carry 4. And the AIM-9X is banned. All other things, minus the MiG-21's nuke, are fair game.
Oh man.
I know, no nukes. But, who wants to see a DCS nuke with how that thing, does that weird shadow, whatever it does on the map?
Too. It just really does. I mean, it doesn't even come close to living up to what you would expect.
No.
That.
Leatherneck. Fix the damn nuke. It's probably not even Leatherneck's fault. It's probably Edie. I don't know. But my anticipation, guys, is I think the Phoenixes are going to play a role here. I think we're going to see a continuation of what we saw in the past matches where the Phoenixes have been a force to be reckoned with. At last matches we saw were Diamond League last week, and they were a force. This week, Gold League, you don't have as many aircraft. We're much closer together. Napa versus Maycop, so the airfields are closer together. I think we're going to see some telephone poles coming off these Tomcats and smashing into their opponents, dismantling and consuming the opposition. So
no, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you would think that on the short hops like this, that the 4 Hornets would be a wise choice, right? But what do you think on that, Billy Malta?
You know, I think in these short hops, the Tomcat really has an advantage because you can't stay away from the Phoenix. You're really forced into a short engagement with the Phoenix, which nobody really wants to be in, right? You don't want to find yourself inside of 20 miles against an incoming Mark 60 when the missile is still underpowered.
I think the Hornet is the right choice as the airframe to combat these 2 Tomcats, but I think you really have to know how to do that, right? If you don't use them in the right manner to kind of draw those Phoenixes out, you really have to kind of present yourself as a juicy target, but at a range that is more optimal for your evasion than their probable kill shot, right? This is where this game of will kind of comes in, is who can will the other into, A, crossing too deep, trying to draw the shot, or the person on the other end in the Tomcat shooting way too early at a range that's going to allow that 18 to get away, right? If I can make you shoot your 4 Phoenixes at ranges that I can get away from them, then you don't have any more Phoenixes left at that point, right? Simple math there, guys. We all know how that goes. And at that point, I think the advantage then shifts from Tomcat to Hornet, because now you have a Hornet with plenty of missiles left, plenty of gas left, and a whole lot more advantages over that Tomcat as far as SA and a lot of other things go. So really, you have to just work that number. The only advantage that Tomcat has over you, which is that long range. If you work that advantage and you whittle that advantage down to nothing, you've put yourself in a much better position to win the fight.
Now,
So
I want to touch on Mr. McMaster's comment about how do you beat an F-14 if you can't get within 20 miles, and if anything, getting close to an F-14 is better. Absolutely. You want to get really close to an F-14. The reason I brought that up is because the Phoenix sweet spot is around 20 miles, 15 miles, somewhere in there, where the missile is, the Tomcat can launch further than you can as a 120B combatant or a 120 combatant. Its missile's still going to be underpowered, so it's still going to have the juice, the smash, when it hits you. It's going to hit you at something along the lines of Mach 3. That's what I mean by that, is that you're forced into that engagement where you can't stay away from it and try and dodge the Phoenixes as they come in. Yes, it's pretty easy to dodge a Phoenix as they come in, and being able to notch them. Typically, it's not a problem. We're just bringing up the point that the 20-mile distance is the sweet spot for the Phoenix in these engagements.
Well, I think the problem is what we see within SATAL is there's not enough pilots who are smart enough to wait until the bandits get to that range mark and realize that they still have this massive advantage.
I don't think smart is necessarily it. I think
fair,
a big part of that.
Now, Snoozy's brought up a good point there, a good question. He said, isn't the Tomcat a good dogfighter? Why stay close? And I think we've addressed this in past SATAL rounds where we talked about this. And once things get down to that sort of sub 15, 10 mile range, it becomes less about individual airframes and more about pilots and NSA, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It does. And the other thing that you have to consider is, yes, the F-14 is an excellent dogfighter, but when you bring missiles into the equation, the dogfighting abilities and stuff kind of go out the window, because if you get into range and you get a decent PK shot, the maneuverability of an aircraft doesn't mean a whole lot when you're comparing it to the maneuverability of a missile that has enough energy to be able to maneuver.
And not to mention, it's up against 4 F-18s, which it's not a better dogfighter than the F-18. So you're not going to want to get in the kitchen of that F-18 and that F-14, or you're going to have a short day there as well. That F-18 is going to be able to pull a lot of alpha on you. Granted, it doesn't have the 9Xs, but it does have the 9Ms, and it's going to be able to get itself in position to shoot that faster than it is that Tomcat's going to be able to in most cases.
Now, we'll say this, we're already within 60 miles and we haven't seen any Phoenixes fired yet. So, we really could be in for one of these brutal Phoenix days with the short range shots here.
Now, I do want to point out for 343rd who their pilots are. We have Rossman and Unem Usuki in their F-18s leading the way, and then the trailing F-18s are Starry Fox 9 and Saber 3916. So these guys are now ingressing. We do have Maximus and Flower in the F-18s leading for Gryphon Squadron, and then Jerk and Phantom in the trailing F-14s. And the trailing F-14s for Gryphon Squadron are behind by around 20 miles, whereas the trailing F-18s for 343rd are behind for something like 15 miles. So separation between these two teams is now down to 50 miles, and as you just pointed out, Loblo, no Phoenixes yet.
Yeah. Now, I've flown against all of these 343 guys in the clinic in BFM, and they are super aggressive Hornet pilots. Once those guys get into the merge, man, high aspect and in-the-face shots all day long with the gun. But, you know, obviously we're in a very different arena here, so...
Yeah, no, it definitely takes a little bit to get to that point here within SATAL, especially within Gold League. I feel like the times where we really see the BFM take place is where we've seen matches where guys waste a lot of their early shots, and it doesn't look like we have two groups here that are going to engage in any of that. These guys look like they know when and where to shoot, and matches like that tend to end pretty viciously when these guys start getting into parameters and getting those good shots off.
All right, down to 30 miles now, and still no Phoenixes. I mean...
There's the first 120 shot coming from Maximus. So that missile's probably just to bring Rossman and Unusuki down from altitude. Oh, and Flower disconnects. That's really unfortunate. So the disconnection rules, for anybody that doesn't know, inside of SATAL, are if you disconnect and you're in the air, it counts as a death. There is no reconnecting. There is no getting back into an aircraft. The only time that is allowed is if a disconnect takes place while wheels are on the ground, while weight is on wheels down on the ground. So since Flower disconnected after taking off, it counts as a death, and Gryphon Squadron has to continue with 3 pilots. So the 120 that was launched from Maximus is now encroaching onto Rossman. Let's grab it and see how it's doing. As it comes in on him, it's not doing anything because it lost track. And it is at 84,000 feet and climbing. So this missile, Loblo and Billy, is becoming a satellite.
Yeah. It is. It's getting up there.
But look at 343. They look pretty organized. You know, good mutual support with the way these guys are flying in elements. So you know that does bode well. But here we just had the first AIM 54A come off the rail from was it Jerk back there?
Yes, I think it was, and that missile was launched from 57 miles, so we're going to grab it and see how this thing does. It is still under power, 60,000 feet, coming up on 3,500 knots, so we're going to go to split screen here and watch this thing ingress and see if it's able to take out an early 343rd combatant and cause the first casualty for 343rd as we progress in this round. It looks like the aneurysm is still here for the Phoenix. I just saw the one launched by Jerk do its patented bleed all my energy as I come in and go from pre-terminal to terminal guidance. So it's coming in, it looks like on Saber.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to have enough energy, Loblo and Billy, by the time it reaches its target to do any type of maneuvering and become a lethal threat as it gets closer here.
Both teams staying low after these initial kind of lunges at bullseye here. Instead of, well, at least we're seeing Maximus get back in, get some altitude, but most of the other pilots here staying relatively low in what is pretty low terrain to begin with. We don't really have a ton of hills here.
You got really some foothills to the south of the AO, but not a whole lot of anything else. There's a lot of flat ground south of Krasnodar.
Correct. So this another aspect of why this kind of bodes well for these PVR shots here. There's just nothing to line of sight into or hide behind today. So
now you got Phantom facing off against Unusuki here at 24 miles at the moment. Phantom is in a rapid climb, passing through 10,000 feet. You know, on the beam at the moment, but if he decides to commit here, that's going to be a pretty nasty Phoenix when that comes off the rail. Now at 20 miles.
He still has all 4 Phoenixes remaining. He just went into blower. Looks like his target isn't on Unam, it's on Rossman. There goes tanks. That's always a good side. The squadron as a whole is on top of their fuel management. They're on top of their drag management. You don't want to carry those empty tanks because all they do is slow down your aircraft and burn fuel. So Phantom looks like he's ingressing. We can see Phantom on the map here, ingressing onto Rossman. It looks like he's being flanked by Unam. Maximus launches a long 120 onto Unam to push him off. That may have been launched from STT. I'm not entirely sure because that was too far to get a missile warning, but as soon as that missile came off the rail, Unam turned away, so it'd be interesting to know if that was launched off STT, which it very well could have to get the reaction. Maximus trying to get the reaction out of Unam.
Yeah.
But I like that Gryphon Squadron isn't just turning around. They're seeing that 343rd is going cold and they're pressing their advantage. Gryphon Squadron's Maximus launched that 120, recognized that, hey, I don't have a threat inside of a lethal range. He's got Saber coming in here from 20 miles away, and he's not at all worried. Maximus is at 26,000 feet, lots of altitude. We're still rolling along with Phantom, who's now recommitted against Starry Fox.
11 miles now. 11 miles between Starry Fox and Phantom here.
He's got a 120 coming in, and he's going to be getting that missile warning. He's got to be really careful about... Oh, good. He left gate before he went into that split S. And for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure the Tomcat, if you stay in gate as you go into the inverted or into a dive, you can't come out of gate. And he did launch a Phoenix, but that Phoenix looked like it went straight into the ground.
Now, I have to say, you know, contrasting how 343 fly in BFM against how they're flying here, this is surprisingly
docile,
moderated, you know, passive. Exactly. You know, they are being very measured about what they're doing here, and it seems like they're just trying to get those Phoenixes to get baited into them, right? And maybe whittle those two Tomcats down a bit when they can then close the distance, and then they're in the superior airframe, you know.
Well, here comes one against Rossman, and it's got a lot of smash, but it gets notched. Well done by Rossman. That thing passed him at over 1,500 knots. Well done by him to be able to defeat that missile, and then it just disappeared. Didn't hit anything. That was interesting. The things that you see in DCS, welcome to SATAL, where you will see things you never knew happened in the sim.
Right? Oof. That was, yeah.
Urutaro Man says the AIM 54 disconnected. He left chat. He didn't want to be here anymore. He's like, I give up! He notched me. I'm out. See you later.
So just to be clear, we're at a 4v3 at the moment with 343 with the numbers advantage here.
Yep.
And credit to Gryphon Squadron, because you're really not seeing them fly as if there's a deficit right now. Like, you almost forget that they lost a guy at several points in this match, just with how well they've kind of hung in there, and not the spacing is rather perfect. Everybody is spaced out enough right now to not make themselves an easy target or an easy group, but yet
they're being very aggressive as a three ship.
Right, and they're able to cover one another. Nobody's like way out off in the distance. Everybody is well within range of one another.
But I think it's the Tomcats that are allowing them to do that. Like, they've got the two big sticks hanging back there, and you can see that 343 are afraid to push in and eliminate that single Hornet, right? Because
as they should be. They you know, you don't want to give that, as we talked about at the beginning of this match, right? The 20-mile sweet spot. you just don't want to get near that until you know there's plenty of Phoenixes off the rail, right? Like, you just don't want to walk right into that barrage, especially at that range. It's going to be over.
Break. That's a 9-mile slammer on Phantom there, and he launches his own Phoenix back at him from 9 miles.
He actually did a double tap, so the slammer's coming in here. Let's grab it and see if we can see where this is going to go. It looks like it lost track as it's going straight into the ground. Yeah, it did lose tracks. Let's see if we can see where those Phoenixes are going. One's coming on Unam, and that's I need to pause. Okay, I need to pause here.
Yes,
I think some bad things are about to happen. So one of these Phoenixes, Jerk got one off onto Starry Fox 9, and then another one is ingressing onto Unam, and I'm going to give you guys the map here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So here's the Phoenix that came from Jerk up here to the north. It's coming in on Starry Fox 9. Starry Fox 9 is sitting at 2,000 feet, 500 knots. Guys, 500 knots is not an applicable notch speed. Yes, you can do it, but your notch better be damn well perfect. And if we look now at Unam down here, same story. 500 feet, 475 knots, might as well be 500 knots. So let's grab their F2 views. Oh boy. Oh dear. That is
something I want to
not a view you necessarily want to see in an F2 view. Phoenix still under power at 0.1 miles, and it's still tracking.
They time those shots and they're synchronized. This is another, we're starting to see this more and more, is pilots synchronizing those shots. So those missiles are arriving at that enemy group almost simultaneously and causing a lot of chaos in those communications. And that stuff is probably something we don't touch on enough here, and how much that can really break up a group and cause a lot of confusion that can be taken advantage of. And I think we're about to see that here. Maybe even quite before that.
I think we're about to see a double fatality.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, it looks like it.
Double face smile. We can see both these missiles. The one that came from Jerk, and we still have this pause just because we're talking about this, and I don't want to be talking over this. The one that came from Jerk is sitting at just over a half-mile away. Just came off power. It's going to be around 2,000 knots. The one that's on Unam is going to be over 2,000 knots. Let's hit play. By the graciousness of God, are either of these guys going to be able to get away from these? You guys think so? I don't. I think they're both going to be face smiled into oblivion.
Yeah, looks like we're about to
All right, here we go. We're going to be spreading some lovely ashes all over the ground of the Caucasus.
Yep.
Booms incoming. Oh! Unam gets away from one. Starry Fox 9. So the one that was coming in on Unam, he actually missed. And... oh! But Saber got taken down. So I totally miscalled that one. Unam was able to dodge it, but Saber got taken down. And instead of this being a 4v3, it's now a 2v3, which is a complete reversal of advantage coming in here. So now we've got Rossman and Unam, the only two remaining, against Maximus, Jerk, and Phantom. Now a Phoenix coming onto Rossman from Jerk. Is that going to be a problem? Jerk puts a 120 out.
Looks like that's going for Gryphon, and you got Jerk there. Maximus firing a 7-mile slammer after Unamu.
Yeah, that's
but a 7-mile slammer's not going to be able to keep up with a 7-mile Phoenix. Here comes the Phoenix, still under power from that 60-second burn time, and it smashes into Rossman's aircraft. And if we move over to look at the map, Jerk is going to be fine, as he was able to trash that 120 without a care in the world.
3v1.
So now the lone man, the only man, the lone pilot, Unam, now ingressing against Maximus.
I'm not sure what it was who disconnected. I apologize for not remembering his name, but they didn't need that guy.
Flower. It was Flower. Yeah, it seems like he didn't matter. Flower, we felt like we were at too much of an advantage. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Yeah. Don't need you.
So here comes the 120 against Unam. It's inside a half a mile. Unam's going to do a decent job of burning that thing out of energy. He's climbing now. There goes the missile down below him. But let's jump to split screen so you guys can see what exactly is going on. We now have Phantom, who's pushing off a Phoenix. Let's grab the Phoenix's point of view as we're going to try and watch it ingress against Unam. And where is it? There's the Phoenix. So we can see the missile burn. It's coming on low, treetop level. This thing's going to be lawnmowering into the backside of Unam. Unam is now full cold, but that Phoenix is still under power. And a 10-mile Phoenix, ladies and gentlemen, you are not going to be able to out-energy it. And it's closing, not getting away from it. He tries to notch it at the last second. No notching, no countermeasures. And that is it.
Now, just to point out, that was within 90 seconds, they eliminated 4 jets.
Yep. All Phoenixes. Every one of those kills was from an AIM-54. Every single one. Every one. And I mistakenly thought that Phantom got all of those kills. Phantom got 3 of those kills, I'm pretty sure. Only 3. Jerk got at least one of those. But I gotta commend Gryphon Squadron for the dominance that they showed there going into that as a 3v4 low blow and Billy. I mean, that was...
Yep.
They were on the back foot the whole time.
Phantom needs to change his name to Monster or something, dude, because...
Yeah, no, they didn't really skip a beat there after losing that pilot. I feel like 343 got a little antsy there towards the end. I feel like they did a very good job like avoiding the Phoenix trap early on in it, and then it was like they got a little antsy out there hanging out after nothing was really taking place, and then they started pushing in, and that's what they're waiting. I'm pretty sure we had Rios today too. I'm not 100%.
I would assume so.
It looks like Rios were participating in that whole thing. Now, when you have that guy to manage that and watch those distances, and it's like, oh, here they come, and then we saw it the moment they pressed in within applicable range, those Phoenixes were out simultaneously on them, and it just, you can't press in on those guys until you start getting them to shoot, and you have to really kind of tempt them in, and maybe that's what they were trying to do there. That could possibly be the case, but nevertheless, not even.
Billy, it's a super interesting point you raised there, because there was that pivotal moment where 343 had the numbers advantage, and they didn't use it. They just stayed passive and allowed themselves to get picked off, all within a very short space of time. And maybe there was a window there where they could have just pressed in with the numbers, gotten rid of that Hornet, and then still had 4 Hornets against 2 Tomcats, and potentially made a difference there. But unfortunately, not.
It's true, and I think the big thing there is, how do you get those Tomcats to shoot? I think that's the true question here, is what do you do to make those Tomcats shoot before they want to shoot? So, and maybe it's catching that Hornet, that the other Hornet on that was with Gryphon there in a bad spot to force that Tomcat to have to shoot earlier than it would like. I just think there's not a lot of ways to put that Tomcat into a position where he needs to shoot before he's ready to.
Yeah.
And if you have a group of guys that know when not to and when to shoot and have the discipline, it's just, you're in a tough spot there. You really are, especially when there's no terrain like this.
The biggest downfall for 343rd there was their inability to defeat Phoenix as a payment. They didn't.
Right.
I talk about this time and time again. They weren't flying ahead of their airplane. They were flying and reacting to things as they unfolded. And this is something that we see a lot in SATAL, because pilots are having to manage a ton of different things. Their brain is going a million miles an hour, so I can't fault them for this. But it's really important when you get in close with Tomcats to be putting yourselves in positions that allow you to very easily defeat the incoming threat. And I don't think 343rd did that very effectively. They found themselves low, which is where you want to be to notch really well, but they were way too fast. So when you're ingressing and you're finding yourself in a position where, hey, I'm getting close to a Tomcat, I'm getting to a point where I'm going to have to deal with missiles and threats that he's going to be able to put on me that I'm not necessarily going to be able to respond to. So you need to make sure that you're putting your aircraft and yourself in a position where you're easily able to defeat that. What I mean by that is to slow your aircraft down, or get into a place where you can line of sight his radar and the missile's radar as it ingresses onto you, because you're his target. So slow down, don't be flying around, ass on the ground at Mach 1.3, because then you have to bleed all of that energy to effectively notch. I mean, granted, you don't have to, but you have to notch perfectly if you're going to stay at that speed.
Having that vertical space below you is way more valuable than I think most people make, and I think that's kind of the point you're making there, is being on the ground, you can't go down anymore. There's nowhere below you, and it forces you to have to bleed energy when you don't want to, I think, especially when there's no terrain. If there's terrain involved where line of sighting things becomes a little bit more into the picture, I think that's obviously a much smarter thing. But here, where it's flat, it's just, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage unnecessarily, I think.
Right. And you would think that if their mentality is that, well, we're low, we're in the thick air, and those missiles aren't going to be able to perform down here. I mean, the thing is that at these ranges, you're seeing those Phoenixes under full power, at 15, 10 miles, and they're still connecting at Mach 3, Mach 2.8. So, I'm not sure what the mentality is there by being down in the weeds like this, but it's not working.
I think you guys are misinterpreting what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you want to be low, but you want to be low and slow. You want to be thinking ahead of your aircraft to the point that you're anticipating that those shots are coming, because if you're caught too high, you're gonna die against a Phoenix that is launched from 15 miles. You can't get to the ground fast enough to be able to notch it effectively. Right. Yes, you can notch at 15 at a higher altitude, but you can't get to the ground fast enough in order to be able to put yourself in an opportune position to notch it. So when I say think ahead of your airplane, you need to be anticipating that these shots are coming and already be slow and already be low, and hell, maybe already being in a notch and trying to disappear from that Rio's radar. So that's what you're trying to do, because you can utilize the notch in like a serpentine snake pattern and just go back and forth as you ingress against those Tomcats. If you know he's the closest guy, now you do need to have somebody behind you looking for closer threats and low threats and all of this stuff. And this is where teamwork comes into play. But you just need to close the distance to those Tomcats, because if you allow them to sit in that close to medium distance of 15 to 20 miles, they will eat you alive, because they can shoot at you, but you can't shoot at them, which is what we saw exactly unfold in this match.
Well, stepping back from that, I have to ask the question, Malta, why are these guys allowing themselves to get within 15 miles of Tomcats with Phoenixes in the first place?
Well, you have to.
I think
that's not a problem. The problem becomes when you can't defeat them effectively. And that's what I mean. You have to anticipate those shots, because if you allow the Tomcat to get close to you, you have to be ready to defend against it. And they're not a hard missile to defeat. You just have to be close enough to the defeat barrier to be able to get there quickly enough before the missile kills you.
What you're trying to say is you need to go in with a plan, right? So the goal here is to get Tomcat to shoot Phoenix early, right? Like that's the name of the game here, right? Like, what do I do to make that guy shoot that missile a little bit early, or if maybe not early, but shoot it at a position where I have the advantage to evade, right? Like, and that's what didn't happen here today, I think, from what we observed, right? Those guys went in there, those Tomcats shot, and they just were not in a position to effectively get away from those shots. And I think what Moltar's saying is to arrive at that point in the match with a plan and have your jet in a position to where even if they shoot at you at 15 miles, your jet's already notching, already in a position to be turned away. You have to know they're probably not going to let you get inside 15 miles on them. It's just probably not going to happen. The odds of it are very unlikely unless somebody's asleep at the wheel.
All right. But let me just clarify, because if the two options are between, like, one, if you're high, kinematically defeating these shots is impossible. Like once you're within, say, 20 miles, which I completely agree with. But then if the only other option is to be low and slow and rely on a notch to actually defeat this missile and then have a chance at killing, like, to me, neither of those two options are appealing. There has to be a third option in there, which revolves around keeping them at arm's length, right?
If that missile, if they shoot at you inside 20 and you stay hot and allow yourself to be hot ass, or straight on aspect when that missile goes pitbull, there's nothing you're going to do. But if you're already notching and turning and heading towards the deck, you have some shot at getting away from that thing. I think in some cases, depending on the numbers in the range, you're certainly up against it there. But I think you have to be, the aircraft has to be notching before they shoot in most cases at that range. You have to be taking yourself away from them. If you continue to keep that hot aspect, you're going to be in trouble. But I think it's about, like Moltar says, flying ahead of your aircraft.
The Phoenix.
Right.
Okay, so the Phoenix, this is something that people need to understand. The Phoenix is very easy to spot. So if they're inside 15 miles and they launch at you with a Phoenix, they've given away their position. You notch that missile. The Rio, this is what sets good Tomcat crews from bad Tomcat crews. It sets them apart. The Rio then has to, if you notch the first missile, you're also probably going to notch his radar, more than likely if you're that close. He then has to reacquire you. He probably doesn't have line of sight on you, so he probably can't see you with his Mark II eyeball, so you're going to disappear for a little bit. As soon as you recognize that missile's trashed, you recommit, right? Mr. McMaster, I don't think it's smokeless. You can still see it. Like, you can still see the 120C. The 120C. You can still see
you have the air-to-air targeting pods. Like, I have my targeting pod most times. I see this. I specifically look to see when that Tomcat's launching that Phoenix for that reason. So I don't know if guys had that targeting on it. But you have to assume the ability to see that launch is there, right, in most cases.
Yeah. So you got to get into that notch quickly and then come out of that notch effectively. And you have to be comfortable doing that relatively quickly is what I'm getting at. So if you're able to do that relatively quickly, and then you have to put threats onto them, right? So the key there is to make sure that you have enough missiles that you can shoot back at your opponent so that he has to deal with them. So now, instead of him just ingressing on you and you just defending, he now has to deal with an incoming threat, which a 120 launched from 10 miles. It's a threat. It's something you have to do.
You got to do something about it. Yeah, correct. And I think that's a very valuable point there, that you have to disrupt their movement when you get in that close, right? You're taking the risk to get in there to try to bleed a missile from them. You need to add yourself, use what your advantage is, being a Hornet versus a Tomcat here, having more missiles and I not really use the term waste it, but chuck one in there with the intention of probably not getting a kill, but yet changing their vector from you, right? Like that's the important thing, is to turn them away from you.
Well, I will say this, like in BFM, we talk about taking the easy fight or taking the hard fight and making a decision, funneling your decision making towards, forcing a fight that's easy for you and hard for the other guy, not a fight that's hard for you and hard for him. And I think here there's an element of 343 missed the opportunity to have an easy fight. When they had the numbers, they could have pressed, they could have overcome that single Hornet, and then they would have had the numbers. Yeah, sure, there would have been some risk there from some incoming Phoenixes, but I really do feel like they missed the window to take an easy fight here, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I think you're right. I think there was certainly an opportunity for them to kind of capitalize on that whole situation, and it just doesn't look like enough was done in the moment to necessarily do that. Which is obviously, I think that's something too. It's easier said from this perspective, right? At this point, than in the moment. They have to really kind of observe the fact that somebody disconnected. If they missed the fact that he even disconnected, they might have thought they were fighting four guys that whole time. We don't really know that. You can assume that was probably picked up on, but that's not something I think they would necessarily put out there. You have to kind of be watching the chat for that.
So let's use the TAC view as an example, so you guys, so maybe chat can have a better understanding of what exactly I'm talking about with what could have been done in this situation as 343rd. So this is the first critical engagement coming in from the AIM-54s. I thought Unem was effectively dead. I didn't see him getting away from this, but actually he's decently slow. And the key here is that he is very, very low. I mean, he's right on top of the ground, and he's under 0.75 Mach. So that missile misses him. The key here is low and slow, and he does that decently well. Now, could the missile have hit him? Maybe. Would it have hit him if it was a Charlie variant? Possibly. I don't know. If we, on contrast, go up here and look at Starry Fox 9, he's significantly higher. He's like 200 feet higher, and he's a decent amount faster. Now, we talk about this a lot. Trust the notch, right? Instead of trust the force, trust the notch. He doesn't dump it. He doesn't dump countermeasures right before the missile gets here. And look what happens. He breaks out of the notch instead of staying committed, breaks out of the notch, and the missile smashes him. So it's really critical that if you guys are going to commit to a notch, commit to it. Deploy your air brake. If you find yourself that you're too fast, dump your gear. Get all of your spoilers out if you can, because the difference here is dying or having your crew chief mad at you because you broke something. So
I think somebody said that there was a aircraft I think pulled 17 Gs during that too. I saw in chat.
I think it was a Phoenix. I thought.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not. I don't know. I saw the 17G, but I didn't see what it was applicable to. So this one, Jerks Phoenix, if Starry Fox 9 would have stayed with that notch, pulled out his air brake, continued to dump chaff, missile may have missed him. And then the same thing happens down here for Saber. Is this one, he's just not thinking ahead of his airplane fast enough. The missile's already really close. He could have committed to the notch here. Could have committed to it. But doesn't. And, well, he tries to, actually. He's just not right on it, and I don't think he's slow enough. You can see that his angle to the missile, he's like 20 degrees, 10 degrees turned into the missile instead of that perfect 90. That's right here, the perfect 45 90 degrees that would exist right here. He's not quite there, and we can see it, the missile as it comes in. He was right there, he was at it, but then he turns off of it, no countermeasures until it's too late. You got to be dumping countermeasures way earlier than that. Instead of just right when the missile gets to you, because then it doesn't care. It's just pulled in on you, and it's not going to matter.
Well, so, it's come up in clinic chat a few times now, and Guido and Slick brought this up as well. And I think the thing here is that for my money, 343. Once the Phoenixes started flying, they're flying like 4 singletons. They're not flying. There's no offensive coordination or commitment in elements here. We are literally looking at 4 singleton Hornets scrambling to defend, and they're not really applying any pressure whatsoever to Gryphon Squadron.
Well, let's look at what could have happened here. So if these missiles would have been notched, right? Most of the time when Tomcats launch Phoenixes, they almost always immediately turn away. So you can see Phantom does that. Jerk did that initially. When he launched, he broke off, and he didn't support this missile, so he broke off, so he's not supporting it. The only one hot immediately is Maximus, and the distance between Maximus and Saber is 11 miles. It's also really important that Rossman and Saber, and Starry Fox 9, Saber and Rossman should have been hot here. I mean, Saber was, but Rossman needs to be hot here to support Starry Fox 9 because it allows, when you have mutual support from a friendly, it allows your guy to concentrate on defending instead of concentrating on defending and attack. But if we just use this as singletons here, Starry Fox 9 could have very easily defeated this missile as long as he committed to the notch and then engaged Maximus and come in here on the offensive. So this is what people need to understand, is that just because you're being launched on doesn't necessarily mean that the bandit is always tunnel visioned on you and just staying hot on you. Yeah, sometimes they are, but more often than not, especially in SATAL, they're anticipating that a threat is coming from you onto them that they don't see, so they're not going to want to overcommit into these situations. So you can definitely go on the offensive immediately after defeating an incoming threat, and that's something that sets the veteran pilots away from the people that are just getting into SATAL. 343rd and Gryphon Squadron aren't newcomers. I would put them at relative moderates, probably. I think this was just, they didn't defend against the Phoenix well enough. I think if these were 120s, this would have been a much closer matchup maybe, but they just didn't anticipate the Phoenix being this much of a threat. And I got to hand it to Gryphon Squadron. They launched those Mark 60s in a really beneficial way to give them the best chance at hitting their target. So,
well, I think they make a very good point of why you don't just go chucking Phoenixes out to start the match, right? How valuable those Phoenixes are when used appropriately, which isn't like some long-range artillery to start a SATAL match, which is, I think we would all agree, the majority of the ways we see a lot of teams utilize it, as where, no, don't do that. Don't waste those valuable missiles on these low probability shots. Specifically for SATAL, allowing these teams to venture within that range where you have that advantage still at a much higher probability is truly the way to utilize it here. And we're seeing it, especially in these last 2 weeks, just how brutal of an advantage it is when used properly. I think for a long time, we've seen the Tomcat really just be misused in a lot of ways within SATAL. And now I think you're really starting to see teams figure out how to get the most out of that airframe in these situations. Right. And I think teams are struggling to try to kind of combat that as they develop.
What strikes me, Billy and Moltar, here is that, within these sorts of ranges, the Hornet should be dominating this fight with the HMD, with the data link, with the maneuverability, all of the points point towards them running away with this fight, and they simply aren't doing that. And my question to you is, why not?
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to play the long game. You have to make those Tomcats get antsy because they haven't shot anything yet, which means keeping your distance and basically goading them into shooting you, getting just close enough and turning back, Make them get to the point where they're tired of not shooting at you and they shoot before they want to. I think that is truly, you have to kind of not play their game and get into those parameters. You have to stay out of them, as long as possible. And it just takes patience.
I could see that. I think the biggest issue here, and I'm going to pick on Rossman in this situation, and we're going to go back again to flying ahead of your airplane. you need to be thinking steps ahead in BVR. It's if you don't, you're going to find yourself in a nigh unsurmountable situation.
It's
So
happening too fast.
let me take you guys through if I were in Rossman's position, what I would do and what the things that you need to be thinking about in this engagement. So they have data link. It's all flat terrain. We're going to make the assumption that all of these contacts are visible on data link because they're all hot towards the AWACS. The only times you start to have issues where people don't show up on AWACS is, one, if the AWACS is moving away from the bullseye area, if the target is moving away from your AWACS, or if he's line of sighting or notching your AWACS. So we're going to make the assumption that all of these contacts for Rossman are available on his data link and are being transmitted from himself to UNAM over PPLI. So the things that Rossman needs to be thinking about in this situation are as follows. He has 3 contacts. All of these contacts, and this is stuff that I think about when I'm ingressing into these fights. He has 3 contacts inside 12 miles. One of these contacts is sorted on Maximus. He can kind of assume that that guy isn't an immediate threat. He's sorted on UNAM. Maximus is sorted on UNAM, so he's not an immediate threat. He can focus more or less on this 2-ship. He needs to recognize that he can't just deal with Jerk. He has to put a threat on the Phantom, because if he decides to defend, he's not defending against a singleton, he's defending against a 2-ship. So he needs to put threats onto both of these targets in order to give himself a chance to defend an incoming threat, which he has to assume is coming, and then to be able to come out of that defensive maneuver back onto the attack. Because if he just is forced to stay on the defensive, he's going to die because he doesn't have anywhere that he can go to hide. And he's in a 2v1 or possibly 3v1 situation. So if he's forced to defend, he can't put threats on his opposition, and they're just going to find them. He's going to find himself in a more and more unsurmountable situation. So
it's not the point we've said in the past few rounds of SATAL that, you know, how dangerous the Phoenix is once it gets within 20 miles. So is not the point that it's already too late for Rossman because he's now got 2 Tomcats within 12 miles of him?
No, it's not too late. He just needs to equalize the playing field. So these are the things that you have to be thinking about when you come into BVR situations. You can't just think about what's right in front of you. So he needs to put 2 missiles out. He needs to put one on Jerk, and he needs to put one on Phantom. And the reason you need to put one on both, is because you only put one on one of them, the other guy's going to stay hot. And while you defend an incoming threat, that guy is going to get closer, and he's going to kill you. So you have to force both of them to defend. But
I think you missed my point, Multi, because if Rossman at this point gets 2 Phoenixes on him, one from Jerk and one from Phantom, even if he turns cold, he's not going to escape.
You don't turn
missiles,
cold,
right?
you notch. You have to notch. You can't turn cold. So, but what my point that I'm making is when you go into the notch, if you don't put a threat on the Jerk or Phantom, they're just going to continue to press on you, right?
Notch that first shot, but the second one's going to get you. You're not going to outrun anything that's coming.
So you have to notch. You have to constantly be putting threats on them. So what I would do in this situation, launch on Jerk and Phantom, immediately go into the notch, defeat those missiles, come out of the notch, put 2 more threats out on them, or if one of them's hot, 1 more threat. So I'm constantly having to give them stuff to deal with because I'm trying to get them to make a mistake to give me an advantage. If
I'm not a fan of that, but I feel like that's a situation where
there's no other way to get out of this situation in a 2v1. If you run, you're going to die because you can't hide. You can't outrun a Phoenix, and you can't run. There's nowhere you can go. There's nowhere to line of sight. The only thing you can do in this situation is press. And
so what I was getting at before with taking the hard fight or taking the easy fight is I was getting at, if we wind back to when these guys had a 4 versus 3 situation, maybe what they could have done there to capitalize, because they had that moment where they had the single Hornet in balls deep and he had the 2 Tomcats behind him. And it looked like they could have just closed in on that Hornet. If it's risky, sure, but what's the alternative? This, just get eliminated one by one.
Right. So there isn't an alternative. The way you have to combat this is you have to be aggressive. If you just sit here and wait and wait and wait and don't press, you're going to find yourself in a situation, if you aren't able to defend and defeat the Phoenix relatively effectively, you're going to find yourself dead.
You have to move them. If you get in that range and you don't change their vector, it's over. it's so important to get in if you're gonna get inside those ranges with those Tomcats, that you do something. And this is where I was saying Mad Dog, because if there's a
Mad Dog doesn't work anymore right now.
Oh, is that what patch is that on?
I don't
patch?
think the 120 works right now in Mad. At least for the F-16, I don't think it works.
Well, I think let's pretend we're in a world where that does work, because I think that would be the effective strategy here. Not that maybe in this specific situation they were
absolutely
doing it right. Is to just you need RWR warnings to go off. If you think about it in that capacity, you're trying to make that RWR go off in that plane. I'm not trying to kill him here. I'm just trying to change the direction he's heading, because I can't have him keep heading in the direction he's heading. I've gotten too close at that point for that. Right. If I don't do something to do that, one of those two guys is going to kill me at the end of the day. I think
you have to be willing to take some risks. If you don't take risks, you're just going to be constantly on the back foot, and eventually your luck's going to run out and you're going to die. So you have to, the good pilots are the ones that can create their own luck. And they do that by the skill to be able to recognize what to do in certain situations. Like in this situation, to recognize that I have to engage both of these threats. If I engage one, because this is a 2v1, the other guy's going to kill me. And that's exactly what Gryphon Squadron wants. They want to create a bag and drag situation where you engage one of them and then the other guy comes out and kills you. That's textbook how this works. 2v1 situation, all of the advantages are with Gryphon Squadron. So as a singleton, you have to engage both. Because if you do one, the other guy's going to get himself into a perfect shooting position and you're going to die. And while you defend him, the other guy's going to come in and kill you. And your only way out is to engage both, force them onto the defensive, force them to separate, and kill them both one at a time. That's how you get out of this situation.
I still think there's some advantage to avoiding this aspect or this portion of this situation as long as possible. Make those F-14s feel like they have waited forever to shoot those Phoenixes. That is going to compound, and that is going to add up. We've seen teams do that, especially in Diamond League, where you know a team wants you to do something and you specifically just don't do it because that effect it has on them can deteriorate what they're trying to do. You know, a team that's trying to come out fast and hard with a game plan, if you just slow that down and slow that pace down real quick, you're going to mess with that and you're going to create an advantage for yourself in the process, I think. So this is what I was talking before, is like, don't go diving into those ranges. No. Let's sit at 40 miles from them, because if they want to shoot at you at 40 miles, that's your advantage. That's a shot you can handle and manage.
That works to a point, though. But if you constantly are doing that, they're going to force you out of the bubble.
No, I think that's a very situational strategy, right? You can't rely on that as your main tactic. You have to kind of pick and choose. It really works well when you see that there's a team that wants you to get inside that range, right? That wants you to do something specific like that.
The F-14 is a decent plane, but when you get in close with these missiles, once you understand how to defeat an AIM-54, they're very easy to defeat. The key is, like I've said earlier, you have to fly ahead of your airplane and you have to bleed your energy early. Now, backing up to what Billy just said, if you want to take that aspect, let's go back to the four ship here. The things that you can do, and then we'll move on to the next round. What you could do in this situation is you have to recognize that you're not going to outrun these missiles. So you notch them. Immediately after notching, instead of pressing, because you still have a numbers advantage, instead of pressing, you turn cold and you regroup, right? But you've defeated these missiles. So Unam does a really good job of doing this. Instead of him committing, I would have liked to see him turn cold and regroup with Rossman to maybe take a 30-degree right and Rossman take a 30-degree left and regroup in those situations. That's, I think, Billy, what you're getting at is defeat the missiles. You don't necessarily have to go balls to the wall attack. You can definitely defend. The key is, against the Tomcat, get them to waste their missiles. Because when they don't have the Phoenix, they're done. I mean, the AIM-9M, easy to spoof. The AIM-7 might as well not even be a missile. I mean, it as long as it doesn't have the unnotchable bugs and stuff like that. But the Phoenix isn't hard to defeat, especially in close. Its ability to gain energy is very, very slow when it comes off the rail. It does not accelerate near to the point of what an AIM-120 does. So in close or inside that 10-mile range, dude, the Hornet has all the advantage. The key is getting to that point. and forcing the fight and dictating the fight in a long enough or correct manner to be able to make it to that point. So,
well, I don't know. It's just not the 3-4-3 I'm used to seeing. You know, like I said, I know these guys from BFM. They are super aggressive when they fly BFM. And today, it just looked like in this first round, anyway, that they were passive. And I know, Billy, you said be patient and bait those Tomcat shots, those Phoenix shots. But here, to me, it just looked like they didn't capitalize at the right moment when they had the numbers, and then they ended up taking the hard fight. And as you saw, once it got down to that 2v3, that hard fight, for me there, it was game over. Like once it was in that 2v3, it was finished. You had two Tomcats within 12 miles of you and a Hornet within 10. Like, good luck.
Yeah, there's not much that you can do in that situation.
The no terrain made it pretty easy for those Rios to acquire what they were looking for. You know, get the Tomcat nose on it, and you're going to find it in most cases with as little terrain as we kind of saw there, right? So I think you really got to develop a game plan on the fly based upon who you're flying against and what terrain you're flying on. So. Yeah,
343rd could have also just had a bad day. I mean, that happens to everybody. Even the most experienced pilots. I mean, sometimes things just don't click. Maybe they were missing somebody that was critical to their group. I don't know. Just what you're saying is something seemed off, and that very well could have been. But there's a multitude of different variables that could have caused that to happen. Silver Phoenix says AIM 7 being unoperable with the F-14 can make sense if they use the pulse. No, there was an issue a while ago. There was a bug with semi-active missiles where they were unnotchable. you couldn't get away from them. And then there was a bug on the flip side of that where if you flew through the notch, it would just lose track totally. At least that existed with the Russian missiles. So there's just some funky bugs that happen, and you don't realize until you watch a lot of this stuff and you're in. We won't go into it. But what are your guys' anticipations for the next round while I get things fast forwarded and ready to go? So Gryphon Squadron obviously dominated and eradicated their foes, 343rd.
Unless 343rd can step up the aggression and actually apply some pressure, much of the same is what I'm anticipating.
I tend to agree with that. I like to try to hope that these teams learn a little bit from one round to the next, right? How much of that takes place here, I'm not quite sure, but I think there certainly was some stuff to take away from them as far as what Gryphon Squadron was doing in that match. Keep in mind, it wasn't as if Gryphon Squadron is down a man because he didn't show up. It was a disconnect, so they're going to have that fourth guy back, right. Which that doesn't bode well for 343 and what they were trying to pull off there, because you try that again with a fourth guy in the mix, and it's probably going to end faster than it did in this first round. So I think they need to really retool the game plan there and attack these Tomcats in a bit different manner. So.
In my opinion, they really just need to be aggressive, defeat the incoming threats, press, instead of sitting into that range, and they need to be able to defend effectively. Their downfall there in round one was their inability to defend the incoming threat, whether that be an AIM 54, a 120, anything, their inability to defeat them effectively. I didn't see one guy outside of Unam defeat an incoming missile at all.
So just to clarify, Multi, you think that closing the distance for these Hornets and then getting low and slow is the way to go? That's the best game plan here?
Well, if there's no other thing you're going to be able to do, how else are you going to be able to kill him?
I don't know. I just feel like the getting slow thing, it just doesn't.
There is a point.
It confuses me because you say that you do end up in an ACM situation, being out of energy is not the best option.
No, it's not. It's a balancing act. But when you throw missiles into this situation, if you were fast and you were close, you were probably going to die if the missile still has ample energy. The only way to defeat these threats is to be low and to be slow. I mean, you can be fast.
I'll make this point too, though, that
you can
having
be fast
that
and notch decently, but it has to be perfect.
Having that targeting pod in air-to-air mode slewed to your contacts, you really can't put a value on knowing when that Tomcat has shot that Phoenix, right? That's a valuable piece of intelligence in this whole thing. And if you're going into the intention of making these Tomcats shoot having that camera pointed at them, waiting for that shot, and making sure you know that you're moving and doing what you need to do the moment that Phoenix leaves the rail. That's a very valuable tool, and I think strategy in this whole thing as
but
well.
I don't even think you need the targeting pod when you're inside 15 miles. You can see it.
Right, but even before that, right? Like even in just Tomcats in general, right? I mean, not every guy is going to wait that long to shoot at you. I think you want to have your eyes on that Tomcat, or have the ability to know when that shot comes off the rail. I think in an environment like SATAL, it's just a valuable piece of information, you know.
So what about Billy's suggestion before about staying at 40 miles and just trying to bait those 40-mile shots then, rather than closing into 20, where
They're
know
gonna
the
push you
Phoenix
out of
is
the
going to be
bubble.
super dangerous?
They're definitely going to push you around, and you have to kind of be prepared for that. And I think that's only that can only work in certain situations. But I wouldn't just go running right into to parameters for these guys. I'm going to try to make them work and make them drive all over the map to get those Phoenix shots. I'm not just going to sit there and make it easy for them at parameters, because I think you have a lower probability of getting through that and getting around that. I want to try to make them shoot at the worst possible time I can get them to shoot at, right? And some guys are going to make that very difficult. Gryphon Squadron clearly not going to make that easy on you in any capacity. But I still think, at least for me, the way I like to fight, that is going to be the better strategy than trying to get down there and get low and slow and trash those Phoenixes. Now, granted, it's definitely possible, but I think that's something you have to practice quite a bit. You really have to have that timing down to pull that off with.
Well, my point with this, Billy, is if you take that approach against a good team, you're going to lose.
Well, I think you really have to kind of mitigate how much you go with that and where you draw the line on that whole way of doing things. Certain teams that's going to work better with, like I said, Gryphon Squadron is, I think, a little bit too smart for that whole side of things, as they've shown here today. But nevertheless, teams get antsy. People don't like waiting around, and I think that can play a factor in.
Well, let me throw this out there. So, they're in Hornets. If they decided to stay high and fast and do good work, so to speak, the max they're going to get to is like Mark 1.2, right? So their slammer shots at 20, 25 miles still aren't really going to contest those Phoenix shots. No. But if they've taken Vipers and they can get to Mark 1.8, that's a bit of a different story, isn't it?
I would disagree with that. Having that speed advantage is going to bode better for defending against the Phoenixes and for getting your own 120 shots off. I think that's certainly a valid point.
My issue with that is if they wait and they don't launch, you're going to die. The Phoenix is going to be able to outrate and outrange a Mach 1.8 Viper if it's launched from 115 miles. It's not going to matter.
Yeah, no, playing the jousting game with the Tomcat is not a game you're going to easily win in any capacity. I just don't think that's the strategy to go for there, is to try to out joust it at the end of the day.
The key that you're going to have to do is you have to put some type of pressure on people. And if you don't put pressure, they're just going to keep pressuring you. And that's why the bubble is there, because they're trying to force an engagement. And if you wait too long and you're constantly just trying to stay at that 40 miles and they're being aggressive and you're just turning around, you're going to find yourself eventually at that bubble wall. You're not going to be able to turn around and you're going to have no room to maneuver. And now you're going to be in an even worse predicament than you were before, because you don't want to be aggressive. So you have to find a happy balance. You have to know the times to turn around. You have to know the times to press. But the key here, and the downfall of 343rd in that round one, is you have to know, at least in some sense, how to defeat a missile. Because if you can't do that, nothing else really matters. So anyway, let's move on to round two, see how these guys are going to get on. Guys, I've been dropping frames. I'm not entirely sure why. My bitrate keeps tanking. So I apologize that the stream's been a little bit wonky, but we're going to move on to round two here with 343rd taking on Gold Squadron. 343rd is currently up Gryphon Squadron is currently up 1-0 over 343rd. So we're going to take a look at the supercut, then we'll be back between Anapa and Maycop. See you guys in just a second. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are sitting here on the tarmac with 343rd at a Napa. So what are your guys' Loblo, let's start with you. What do you think 343rd has to do in order to come out on top? I mean, let me have it. What do you think they need to do, in your opinion?
I think they need to seize the opportunity. They need to seize the moment. What is it? Carpe diem, seize the day. They need to see when the opportunity arises, when they can single a guy out. They need to pounce. They need to get him out of the game. Then they need to have the numbers, and they need to push that advantage. They're in Hornets. They've got HMDs. They've got data link. They've got, once it gets within that 15-mile range, they have all the SA in the world, especially with AWACS, and I think they need to use it. What they can't afford to do is press in sub 20 miles and work as single ships defending against these Phoenixes and get picked off one by one. It does not work. So they need to up the aggression and push an offensive advantage here. If they don't do that, I think we're going to see a repeat of what we just saw.
Billy, what about you?
I think, as we've touched on a majority of the time here, I think the name of the game is dodging Phoenixes, right? So at the end of the day, they're going to have to improve the way they did that from the last round to this round. And if we don't see that change, I think it's going to be another quick one for Gryphon there. But I think, a lot of the points that Loblo just made are very accurate. They have to be aggressive in that posture as well too. So I don't know. I think this is a tough one for them, just based upon what we saw out of them in that first round there. But I think, like I said, the key here is going to be avoiding those Phoenixes.
Well, key to any match is not dying and avoiding all missiles shot at you. I think that's
Right.
a crucial role coming in here.
John Maddenisms right there.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, exactly. But 343rd, they've got to figure out how to defeat the incoming missiles when things get in close. And they've got to find some way to be some sort of aggressive, because if you're not aggressive at all, you're not going to be able to get any kills, and the other team's just going to roll all over you. You have to be aggressive in some sort to be able to make something happen here. If you're not able to do that, you're just going to get walked over the entire time, which is, I think, what we saw a lot of what happened in round one. So 343rd has to find a way to come out as a different squadron in this round two. If they don't, I think I gotta agree with Loblo that we're gonna see a repeat of what happened in round one.
Speaking of the Hornet, doesn't it have some updates coming for the Jehikmus and Darlin?
Oh Lord! So the Hornet, for anybody that doesn't know, is getting the Jehemix update to be able to see data link stuff on your heads-up display in your helmet, which means anything that you see in AWACS or PPLI, from my understanding, is going to show up as a target box in your helmet. So you are going to have pseudo wall hacks. So if somebody is behind a mountain and you can't see them, but the AWACS sees them or a PPLI contact sees them, they will show up in your helmet mounted sight as a target box, and you will be able to see them. So in competitive play, I'm not too thrilled about it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know what I can do about it. I think it's going to push things heavily in the favor of the Hornet, because one of the things that happens is, let's say you go into the notch. Well, now you don't know where the guy is. Yeah, you can see him on data link, but you don't have him locked with the radar. You can't slave to that target. So when you come out of the notch, you then have to find him. Well, with this new update, with the data link stuff, you know exactly where he is all the time, even without your radar seeing him. You don't have hers. You don't have that. So you're going to be able to see these guys all the time, as long as the AWACS sees them. So
basically wall hacks for DCS.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I can't say how it's going to play out, but from the stuff I've seen, that's pretty much how it's going to be. No, data link can't see missiles. Well, it can see big missiles. It can't see little missiles. So no 120s. I don't think Phoenix will show up on it. But SAMs and stuff can.
And like surface-to-air SAMs, and then surface-to-surface missiles, like anti-ship missiles, stuff like that. A lot of the larger stuff will.
Yeah, Shinobi. Yes, there is a delay, but that delay is not long enough to say that it doesn't matter. It gets you in a very close area to where they are, to where you could just do a little swivel with your Hornet's helmet-mounted bore sight at 40 miles and pick them up immediately.
Yeah, no, I'm going to kill a lot of people with that thing. I'm really looking forward
and
to
you're
it.
going to have memory, and you're going to be able to see where they were tracking, and you're just going to be able to move your eyes. You're going to see them almost instant. You're gonna see the dots. It's not gonna be
Well, I
hard.
mean, I think the thing is even if there is a delay, I can switch to that bore-sighted helmet on the J Hickmas with the long acquisition, so 40 miles. So now that guy is over there behind the mountain. I'm just pointing at right where I mean, you can see the flow at that range. So I know he's going to come up over there, and I'm just sitting there waiting because I know that guy is there. So there's certainly, I think it's going to cut a few seconds off here and a few seconds off there on a lot of stuff that will end up being a big advantage. I don't know if it's going to be this giant advantage that maybe the term wall hacks make it sound like it is, but I do think it is going to provide the Hornet pilot with an edge as far as once you get in close, especially down low, and you're looking for guys and all that type of stuff. So I think BVR, it's only going to do so much at the end of the day. I think we all know how that goes, how much it's really going to affect things as far as like it's going to make things sorting easier and multiple Hornets kind of working together and so on and so forth. I believe you'll get good information similar to the 16 as far as symbology of who's locking who. I'm not positive to the depth at which that goes. Somebody may be able to correct me in there. But Shinobi does bring it. You can see battling anyway, so this information in most cases it's there. It's just being rendered in a much easier to digest.
It's
format.
there, but there's a real difference between seeing it on the screen and having a target box outside in the three-dimensional world showing where somebody's at.
I don't know if there's a big difference. I'll argue that it's not a big difference there. There's certainly a difference, and it does reduce the reaction time for the Hornet driver. I think that's
basically call it a basically just call it a quality of life improvement.
Well, what it is it's making you more efficient at fighting in those situations. So I think.
So you're telling me there's not a difference between having a symbol on a data link MFD page and having a target box around where that guy actually is? Because usually what ends up happening is you have to move. Let's say you're in a merge, right?
For the brain, I don't think it's a whole lot at the end of the day.
Let's say you're in a merge and you see the guys close to you, or not even in a merge. The guy's about ready to come over a hill, or he's somewhere and you don't see him, right? You're having to guess where he is. Then you have to move your radar to that situation. I understand that, but then you have to move the radar to that place to be able to lock him up, to be able to find him. That's all time taken. That's all time taken to do all that stuff.
Foresight to do that.
You can.
Not as easy. It's just not.
But now, let's say you're taking 5 seconds off your workflow to be able to just be able to see.
You're more efficient at the end of the day, and that's certainly a big advantage. But I once again, I don't think it's a strategy and tactic you can already be using. It just becomes easier at that point. So I don't know how drastic of a difference it really is going to be. It is going to be easier for the Hornet driver to do a lot of the things the Hornet driver has to do. Whether it's really going to be some like game-changing thing at the end of the day, I don't know how much I agree with that aspect of things, but I do think it is going to make that Hornet pilot more efficient, and that can be equated to a lot of different things, I guess, at the end of the day.
I think it is quantifiably different to say like the A10C2 having the TGP and the HMD. Like that's a quality of life improvement, but I would tend to agree with Moltar that the way that this information is presented can make a significant difference at the right time.
Well, right. In certain situation, it is a
name a situation, Billy, where this isn't pertinent information.
BVR.
How would it not be?
I mean, it's you're still if it's on the SA page, I can still look down and be like, he's over there.
You can, but the Hornets SA page, you have to move to each contact in order to be able to get where.
No, you don't. There's a step function.
You would have to step from them. You would have to step from them. Which, if you have it on your heads-up display, you don't have to step. You get everything immediately in your view. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to take. You now don't have to take your eyes off of the outside world and put them on your MFD and go through a step function and all that stuff. You can just look at and maintain where you're looking. You don't have to look anywhere else. It's all there.
Right.
Now, one of the biggest problems that you run into in DCS is taking your eye off of a bandit, losing track of them, and then going back to that contact.
All right, guys, have a look at this. We're now 30 miles, and Gryphon are bringing the heat. We've just had 2 slammers 30 miles and 2 Phoenixes launched there, and no response from 343 yet.
Interesting. I lost my tactic. Let's try that again. Okay, there it is.
We said we wanted to see more aggression from 343 here, but so far...
I don't think you're going to see it. I think it's going to be really lackadaisical, and I think it's going to be a repeat of what we saw in round one, mainly because they knew that they lost to 3 guys in round one. So now I think they're going to fly even more defensive because they're going to feel like they're at even more of a disadvantage here. So you can see it. Well, let me back step here. Let's look at the map. I like that they're not committing and flying aggressive without a plan. So they're turning around. The AIM-54s and the 120s that were launched are now wasted. This is the situation I think Billy was talking about at the beginning, where they're not going to be able to make missiles count when the teams do this. But it's important that you slowly move forward in these situations so that you're not just getting pushed to the edge of the bubble, that you don't want to just be backtracking. So in these situations, these guys need to be turning around and heading back towards Gryphon Squadron, because if they're just going to take this defensive stance, they're going to find themselves at the edge of the bubble, have no room to defend, and just continually get pressed. So they need to recognize that they're...
To some extent, they are doing what Billy suggested and keeping these, keeping Gryphon at a 40-mile arm's length here. And, you know, they are, you can see that they've processed what happened in the last round, and they are flying differently. They aren't just closing into 20 miles, getting on the deck and getting slow. They are, you know, applying a bit of thought to this. But whether it's going to pay off, I don't know yet.
Right. So we've seen what 2 Phoenixes come out so far. So still one. No, I thought there was 2.
There's 2. There's 1 on Starry.
So what does that leave? 6 remaining? 6 Phoenixes still?
Yep.
Yeah, 6 Phoenixes left. So there's still a lot. You've done a little bit of what you need to do there in getting 2 of those off the rail. I don't know if they realize how many they've gotten off. It's tough to know that you've made two Tomcat shoot.
The danger with doing what 343rd is doing, we can see right here. Gryphon is just continuing to close. If the other team doesn't take a defensive approach and they continue to close, this approach becomes null and void because you can only back up so far. It works on the first couple shots, but Gryphon's Jerk and Phantom are just going to press here. And once they get within that range, I think we're going to start to see a repeat of what happened here in round 1.
Right. And check the altitudes too, because Gryphon Squadron all very high up right now. 343 on the
which
deck
is good. Well, I don't think you want it. 343 wants to be high, because if you get caught high against an incoming Tomcat, that's a bad place to be, especially when it's launched from a closer range.
Well, close. Yes. And
I would caveat that the multi, you know, if they were in Vipers, maybe it's not such a bad thing, because if they can get to 1.8, 1.9, at least they are able to contest to some degree with. But
at a map of this size, you're not going to be able to get to that speed, especially this early in the map when you're still heavily laden with fuel. You're not going to be able to get to those speeds this early unless you took no tanks. You're already burning through a lot of your fuel. You got to be cognizant that, yes, the Vipers can do that and the F-15s can do that, but the times that they've done that, they were in a longer map position. They had time to ingress. When Todd tried to do that last week, they had to actually turn around off of their ingress point from their airfield to get more space in order to get that speed up. So here comes a close-range Phantom launch from Mark 60 coming in on Rossman. And that thing's going to be dangerous. Coming in weeds level. He's too fast, not getting into a notch. And that is the first casualty from Phantom. And we're already moving into the direction of a repeat of round 1. And it's actually even worse now because we don't have the flower disconnect. So now Starry ingressing as a lone combatant. His closest guy is 10 miles away. Let's move to his view here. That is not Starry.
Double tap from Maximus there on
TWS shot, maybe? I'm not sure.
I think. Yeah, maybe TWS.
That looks like a TWS shot. I don't really anticipate that being any very effective, but I think what he's trying to do here, Low Blow and Billy, is keep them off. They're trying to isolate Starry in this situation. So now Noel and Unam are having to deal with these missiles as they ingress, and now Starry is even more isolated down here to the south. Thorax is now ingressing down here from the bottom, from the south. We can see the dot. I think Or is that a missile that was launched? I think that may be a missile. Yeah, it's a missile.
And for
that
the
was
viewers,
launched.
at the moment, we're talking about 20 miles. That's what's separating the two floats here at the moment. About
So
20 miles.
we are very close.
And you know the fact that 343 aren't climbing when they're egressing, you know, it does concern me a little bit. I know, Maltar, you say that their best game plan is to be down in the weeds and slow so they can notch, but you know, I don't know, man. It goes against what I know about BVR. The little bit that I do know is, you know, the fighter's meant to always be climbing, right? And
The fight is meant to always be climbing, but you have to recognize the distance that exists between the fronts. So when we're in this 20-mile zone, you can climb to a medium altitude, but you have to take into consideration how fast you can get to a low altitude to try and line of sight or notch these incoming threats. Because as Hornets, and from this close, odds are you're not going to out-energy an incoming Phoenix. It's just not going to happen. So you have to make sure that you put yourselves in situations where you can effectively get to a defensive position. Because if you can't, odds are you're going to die.
So what you're saying is if this was 4 Hornets against 4 Hornets, then that would be a valid tactic.
It'd be, yes, absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. But the fact is that the Phoenix outranges you and is very deadly at 20 miles, 15 miles. So you have to be putting yourself in a situation where if you were against a 120, you may be thinking of that at 7 to 10 miles, right? Where you need to be low already and not defending and trying to get low and getting caught with your pants down high.
Now look at this. You got Jerk and Phantom sitting back there at about 23, 25 miles again, playing the long stick, and it really is just keeping the heat off those 2 Hornets. You know,
yeah,
the 343
definitely
are not pushing into those Hornets purely because they've got the big stick behind them, just the deterrent factor there.
So we are riding along with Gryphon Squadron's Thorax, who is down here in the south. Let's actually change that up and move to Starry, who's coming against Maximus. And Maximus, who is right over the lake just south of Krasnodar, you can see is breaking off, and it was kind of that bait and switch tactic where he was trying just to get him a bit closer to Gryphon Squadron Jerk's Tomcat, who's now put another Phoenix in the air. So here it comes. Phoenix launch from Jerk was at high altitude, so the missile's going to be coming from high to low, ingressing artists onto Starry. And it's already inside 10 miles, 2,500 knots. Starry Fox 9 gets the missile warning from the incoming Phoenix, and he's not slowing down. You got to be recognizing and trying to slow down in this situation. Here it comes. The Phoenix is off power. He's now trying to get into the notch, and it's too late, too fast, and he gets taken down and smashed by that telephone pole-sized missile, 13 feet long. If you get hit by that thing, it's got a large warhead. You're going to have a bad day. Another one coming from Phantom onto Unam, and Unam is, I think he's in a turn. He doesn't know that this missile is coming in, and we're going to see a repeat of what just happened with Starry, and he gets smashed. So 2 more Phoenix kills.
Case of, where did all my friends go? That's what I'm thinking right now.
Nobody really seemed to make the missiles work. Everybody just seemed to just kind of be dangling there for it.
In the case of Unam, I think his problem was that he was in a bank turn, and he didn't get the missile warning until it was too late.
He just had no clue, No, you gotta be bending these things around. If you allow them to take this straight trajectory at you, the amount of energy that they're taking in there is just too much. Even at these short ranges, you have to be doing what you can to bend that missile around the corner as hard as you possibly can. And the name of the game is trying to make that missile bleed speed, right? So I just don't think we saw enough of that in these evasions here.
I don't know if it's clear for the viewers, but this is now a 1v4.
Yeah.
This is a bad time. Bad time to be on 343rd. 343rd's Null's getting pressed by Maximus and Jerk. I think he's recognizing at this point that he can't outrun these guys. 120 now being fired by Maximus. I like that shot. It forces Null to go on the defensive. Maximus immediately defends. He may have seen that 120 get launched from Null, but what this does is it forces Null on the defensive. He can no longer put himself in an offensive position against an ingressing Gryphon and Phantom, and Gryphon and Phantom are able to take the opportunity to get themselves in a higher PK scenario and give their missiles a higher opportunity to be able to make something happen. And we're going to ride along with this Phoenix that's still under power coming in against Null.
Was a 13-mile shot as well from Phantom there. 13 miles.
Yeah, and this is going to trash him. Coming over the split S, and boom! He gets taken down. His aircraft disintegrates, And Null is the last to get unnulled in this matchup between 343rd and Gryphon Squadron. Guys, there were no casualties from Gryphon Squadron in that whole matchup. You laughing at my annulled comment?
Yeah, that was good. That was
Just
well
rolled
done.
with it. Actually, I can't lie. I have a, because I say destroyed. I use a lot of the same words. I have synonyms up right now for.
But anyway,
destroyed.
there was a moment there when Null was like, "Where did all my friends go?" Because that's literally what happened. If he was in a flight of 4 at one point, and then all of a sudden he was by himself. And again, this fight was characterized, I think, by 343 just getting pushed around. They weren't applying pressure. They weren't trying to create any opportunities for themselves, and because they weren't creating the opportunities, they couldn't seize an opportunity, and they just ended up getting eliminated one by one.
Yeah.
I think Gryphon Squadron came into this with a very clear game plan, stuck to it, executed it well. I think props to them for utilizing those Tomcats the way that they should be utilized in this arena. Very good shot selection and choice. I mean, they really put on 2 textbook rounds here. I think come into the year, Gryphon Squadron, we're going to be seeing them quite a bit. Would be my guess, just based upon their level of how they've approached this versus a lot of these other gold teams. This seems like a Diamond League team, almost flying Gold League in some cases. So I think we're going to see these guys do quite well down the stretch here.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they struggled a little bit in one of their past matches. I don't remember if it was the last one they flew or the one before that, but Gryphon Squadron struggled. But this is like a completely different team than what I've seen them recently. And I do need to point out, guys, that Gryphon Squadron did lose 1 aircraft. They lost Jerk. Noel was able to take him down, so Jerk got axed. He was the only casualty outside of the lag disconnect or the desync disconnect from Gryphon Squadron's Flower earlier. So 343rd was able to get a kill. Jerk did get taken down. He was erased from competition. So they did at least get 1 here. That missile was launched from Null right before he got hit by that Phoenix in the face.
But if I was in one of these teams that's in the same division as Gryphon Squadron and I watched this match, I'd be coming away from it thinking, okay, so I can't close and get low and slow. I can't keep them at 40 miles and bait them into shooting those Phoenixes. I'm just going to have to go away and practice this notch. And
you have to.
And is that right? That's what you have to basically do here.
If in a small bubble area like this map is, you have to be able to beat the Phoenix through a notch or line of sight it, because you can't beat it kinetically because the map isn't big enough.
Yeah, no, I was kind of trying to allude to that earlier, where if you haven't practiced that tight in Phoenix shot notch, like that is such a nuanced aspect of DCS. It is truly like the expert level maneuver. Like that is not some stuff someone's gonna tell you about and you're just gonna go do. You really have to kind of practice that. It requires the pilot to rely on their faith in the fact that what they're doing is going to work, because it's a counter to the whole flight or fight thing, right? Like you're basically doing what you would not normally do when a fast missile is coming at you. So like to train your brain to be comfortable in that moment, I think takes some practice at it as well, right? It's just one of those things that you have to have done a bunch of times to really like be able to pull off in a snap instant like that.
Well, I guess the way you could characterize it, Billy, is it's like instrument flying. Like you're in a cloud. Basically, so you want to stay alive, fly your instruments. I mean, it's a similar kind of. It's just basically a procedural way of flying, isn't it?
It's not natural.
Okay, I'm now in this situation. I'm within 20 miles of a Tomcat.
Yeah.
I have to perform this procedure to live, I guess.
Right.
It's akin to getting into a 1v1 situation with a bear. Doing everything that you wouldn't want to do normally and throwing all of your instincts out the window and trying to train yourself.
Yes.
Trying to train yourself into a situation to act differently. And it takes practice to be able to do that and to do it effectively. But the pilots in these small bubble scenarios where a Tomcat is going to excel need to be able to do those things in order to combat their foe well. If they're not, we're going to see very similar results to what we just saw.
And I think too, we are really only now starting to see these teams take advantage of these Tomcats, and I think there really hasn't been a need for especially the Gold League teams to like do these type of things. But as teams in Gold League begin to really hone these tactics and these game plans down, now there is an onus on the next team that comes up against Gryphon better be pretty good at that. You know,
You know what? I mean, moving forward,
at the end of the day, you have to kind of work that in.
It's a good point you say, Billy, because moving forward, what I would really like to see in this competition is some guys get in Vipers and just absolutely commit 100% to a sweep type profile, a sweep timeline where they just go, fuck this, we're getting up to like 40,000 feet, Mark 1.9, and unleash those AMRAMs from 35 miles and put it to these Tomcat guys. You know, like actually get down there and show that the AMRAM can actually contest that space if you are high and fast enough. I would love to see that.
And I think that would in turn cause those Tomcats to shoot well before they want to. And once again, I still think that is the name of the game. If you can get those Tomcat guys to shoot off their mark before their marks, you're winning the battle right there in itself, because we've seen how ineffective the Tomcat is in SATAL without those Phoenixes. So, I mean, it really comes down to the onus of the pilot and the Rio to be very, very, very conservative with where and when they shoot their shots. If you don't have a group that's committed to that, you're not going to be able to pull off what we saw Gryphon Squadron pull off today. It's just not possible unless you are conservative and what's the term I'm looking for there? Composed. You have to have that composure to know when and where to shoot at the end of the day, and not allow those early 16 Phoenix or 120 lobs to scare you into shooting right at the end of the day. So I think that's a big aspect of that as well there.
So is the Viper going to get those Jehikmus data link updates that the Hornet's getting?
I've heard mixed things. I think
Right.
it's supposed to eventually, but I don't know when or if. Well, let's jump to the attack view after we see Phantom put it down, because I don't think he's gonna have any issues coming in here. Mr. Migmaster says F-14 doesn't react to jamming properly, and M54 still tracks with no radar. Yes, that is true. The M54 still tracks sometimes, depending on how it's launched, with Magic INS. So that's definitely still a thing. No full fight aircraft that I know of. Maybe the JF-17 reacts to jammers. So that's not just an F-14 thing. That's an everything thing.
ED has made it seem like there is a big overhaul coming for electronic warfare. When the hell that's going to take place is probably another question, but I think a lot of the reason why we're in the situation we are with the EW is because the fact that they've pushed that off as long as they have. So hopefully once they do actually take a look and reevaluate that, and I know there was talk about a third-party radar module or IADS module from an actual radar company. So how that could factor in to what their plans are with EW is another big thing, because I know them, they're not going to completely redo electronic warfare and then have to redo it again once this third-party company comes in. So a lot of different moving pieces, I think, as far as why we are in the situation we are with electronic warfare.
Right. Well, let's jump into the TAC view to see how these guys get on to break some stuff down, and then we'll send you guys on your way before we move on to Thursday's matchup and get out of here. So let's jump to the TAC view, see how these guys did it, and break everything down. Let me shut down this stuff real quick.
It's amazing that 343 didn't get more bets, you know, because they're at the top of their division. 80% of people bet on Gryphon this match.
I think people are cheating and looking at the scoreboard.
That was going to be my response too.
I really, to break this down quickly, Low Blow and Billy, this is just a continuation of round one. They want to commit to the notch, but they don't notch effectively. They're too fast, and they're a bit too high, and they're not dumping enough countermeasures. I mean, that's what I'm seeing in these situations repeatedly. If we look at Rossman, the same thing happens. He's not getting slow enough. He's not notching perfectly. And I actually don't see him dumping countermeasures until he dumps some back here, but not right until the missile hits him, which is unfortunate. I think this is a big part of just not being ready to fight the Phoenix, which was what Gryphon brought out in spades. So he gets taken down, and we're going to see that repeatedly in these situations. He's just the first casualty. So moving on, I think Starry is the next one to go down. Here it comes, and he commits, and it's just the same thing. They're not getting onto that 90 line. He's trying, but he's not quite there, and they're staying at this 0.8 Mach. Slower. Get that slower. 0.4 Mach will make this really easy, and I know that's going to seem, especially to you, Low Blow, really ass backwards to get that slow, but it makes defeating these missiles way, way easier in these situations, and they're just
Yeah,
too
man.
fast
I'm not
and
gonna lie.
precise enough.
It's taken me a little while to come to grips with it, but
Yeah,
I'm
but
getting there.
it's going to increase your survivability tenfold if you're able to do that effectively.
Something else I should point out for Gryphon Squadron is those guys who weren't in Tomcats, was it Flower and Maximus? Obviously, Flower not really there in the first round, but in the second round, those guys did a very good job of not doing anything stupid to get themselves in a situation where they needed a Phoenix to do something. Because I think the strategy relies heavily on that, as where those other two planes have to do a very good job of not getting into trouble. Right, so being disciplined and kind of working off the lead of the Tomcats, which I think we saw pretty effectively out of Gryphon Squadron today. So the role players playing their roles very well, I think, helped not really allow 343 to get off an early kill or something that may have disrupted what their game plan was to begin with. So credit to those guys.
Every one of these kills, every one of the kills, ladies and gentlemen, in this match happened from a Phoenix. The last one against Jerk was 120.
And that's credits, like I said, to these guys in Gryphon who played their role and weren't overextending themselves trying to get kills or whatever. Gryphon had a game plan today. They stuck to it and executed it very well, I think. Even with a man down, which is very impressive within itself right there. So.
Now, Billy, let me ask you. You work at Wild Weasel. You make the T-shirts. Can we have a T-shirt that says "null equals annulled"? Can that happen?
Yeah. Oh, let me get the pad out here. I'll write that down. That's a number.
I will buy that.
Am I getting royalties for all of my?
We're gonna work it out. I got links coming, coupon codes. We're gonna keep track of all this. We're gonna get everybody taken care of for their beautiful designs. We're gonna have a whole DCS SATAL section, I believe, on the new website. So on the redesign here, which should be coming in the next 2 weeks minimum here. So I think we're going to have a lot of cool stuff. And like I said, I really want to try to work some stuff in for the SATAL community and create a nice discount for you guys, and create some shirts that kind of live from the stuff you see on stream here. So more of that coming. And I think we're going to have ourselves a great holiday season and a nice 2021 as we're
Dave
almost,
GT asked, how many missiles did 343rd fire? They fired 7 in round 2. 7. If each Hornet carries 6, they'd have 24 120s. And then if they carried 2 AIM-9s apiece, they'd have 28 missiles. They fired 7. So the match didn't go very long. So I don't think that was bad. It was just they didn't defend well. That's really the crux of it. They did not defend well against incoming threats, and they paid for it. Not much more can happen other than that.
I think today might be the best use of the Phoenix or the Tomcat that we've seen in SATAL, period.
Maybe. I think it was, I'm going to say that it was the most effective. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a big part of that is 343rd's seemingly inability to defend it. That's my thing there. Billy, they say you're frozen.
I am. I'm working on it.
So I don't know about the best use of the Tomcat, but I'll take it and say that it was the most effective. I mean, 8 kills with AIM-54s. We haven't seen that before, so that was well done. Next round, let me see who the next one's going to be on Tuesday. And guys, we are working on the next website. I am going to have a streaming schedule up, and the normal schedule for all the teams is going to be locked, so that you guys aren't going to be able to cheat on the on the betting. That's not going to be a thing anymore. So that only registered members for the teams are going to be able to see all of that stuff. The general people aren't going to be able to see that. You're going to be able to see the stats and stuff after they stream. Next match is going to be German Tactical Air Group taking on Baby Shakers, and that's going to be Thursday. And then Saturday's match is going to be Phoenix Task Force against 36th. So Saturday, we go back to Diamond League. So we've seen some Diamond League here recently. But Thursday, German Tactical Air Group taking on Baby Shakers. And then Saturday is Phoenix Task Force taking on 36th. And it looks like Billy's having some webcam issues. Just doesn't want you to see him doing inappropriate things in his pit. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for today. Today's stream was brought to you by, I'm going to start doing this because I think our sponsors need more shout-outs. Brought to you by Wild Weasel Apparel. That's Billy, my man. If you guys need aviation shirts, make sure aviation apparel or anything, make sure you check out his website. We're going to try and make more of a combined effort for the new website that's coming. So we're going to link back and forth between that stuff. The new websites, we're going to try and make it just a central hub for DCS multiplayer in general and for competitive DCS. So that's what's coming. And Black Hog. So if you guys haven't checked out, it's behind me. I can't show it on camera. But the Black Hog button box, in my opinion, for the money, for what else is out that's available out there, you guys can vote me as a shill or whatever, but it's probably the best button box that you can get for under $200. It's really, I like the switches that are on it. My only gripe with it is the flip up button. Black Hog, if you're listening, make that the big flip red switch and not this plastic head thing. And make it not a button, make it a tactical switch, right? That's my only gripe with it. Everything else is awesome. All of the sliders and stuff, they're all analog axis. They're not encoders, so I really like that. If you guys need a button box, make sure you check out their link in the description down below. They're great. So, and one last shout out to Low Blow's channel. X Pilot vs. the World is coming Saturday, right? Low Blow?
Saturday.
Yeah,
yep,
Saturday.
That's the comp, and then
what time?
On Sunday.
Streamed on Sunday.
The stream will be 2000 Zulu on Sunday. Yep.
So make sure you guys tune into that. Follow him on Twitch to make sure that you guys don't miss the go live announcement. But that is going to be it. Our next stream again Thursday. German Tactical Air Group taking on Baby Shakers. Don't miss out. So I'm going to try and next time there's going to be a little survey because I need to get some feedback. I feel like our viewership's been dropping a little bit. I need to get some viewership or some input from you guys and what you like and what you dislike. And if you hate me, then you hate me. And that's why. Quick shout outs to BC23 Martin for dropping the tier 1 sub. Much appreciated, guys. Until next time, stay safe in those virtual skies, and we will see you all Thursday. Have a good one.
See you. See ya.